Record. Okay, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to my lesson for today. I almost said I welcome you guys to my YouTube channel. I know this lesson will be posted on my YouTube channel. So, guys, without any waste of time, I just got an indication from Shreyas and the other new learner. I think it's Tapelo. They said they are able to clearly see on my whiteboard. So, guys, obviously, Shreyas, I gave you guys a homework to do. Remember, Tapelo, make sure you mute your mic so that we don't hear the background noise. Just make sure that you mute your mic in case if you are not answering a question. So this is what we had. This is y axis and this is x axis. We had a straight line like that where this was the origin. So remember, guys, in case if you are able to click on back and then scroll up in the group, there's somewhere where I posted this homework. So in case if you are able to see that homework, you can still go back and check that homework. But otherwise, I'm going to write down everything so that you are able to see. So we've got 1, we've got minus 1. This was number 1 of your homework. So Shreyas, just make sure that I'm writing everything correctly over there. If there's also someone who attended the lesson where I was giving this homework, just make sure that everything that I write is correct. So what I'll be doing, guys, is we'll be basically doing the corrections of the homework that I gave to you. So you just have to check where you made some mistakes. And again, in case if you've got a question, you can just pause me and ask a question. So remember, guys, every time you ask a question, just go for it. Don't take it bit by bit, because sometimes you'll find that the message is still on the way. So I'm just trying to avoid that situation where I'm still waiting to share your comments. So in case if you've got a question, just stop me and immediately ask the question. Then remember to mute your mic. So guys, before I start with answering these questions, are we all on the same page so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So in this case, this is a situation where you are given a straight line on a Cartesian plane, and they want you to determine an equation of a straight line, or otherwise an equation of a linear function. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I start in answering this question, I just want to quickly take you through a summary of our previous lesson. So I said we've got what we call linear function, which is also referred to as a straight line. So linear function or a straight line, it's one and the same thing. Remember, a straight line is just a line which is straight. It could be a line in that way. It could be a vertical line. And again, it could be a line which is at an angle. It could be, again, a line which is at an angle. But remember, most importantly, every time when we draw a function, we draw it on a Cartesian plane. So a Cartesian plane is that x axis and y axis. So this is what we call a Cartesian plane. You've got the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. The vertical is called the y-axis. The horizontal is called the x-axis. So where these two axes intersect at that point, this is what we call the origin, and it's 0 there. So we call that point origin. So to all the new learners, remember, you don't need to write these notes because I'm recording this lesson. So as soon as I record each and every lesson that I do, I post it on my website. So after each and every lesson that we conduct, in case if you want a link where you can catch up, you can just let me know. So I'll send you a link where you can find all the lessons that we had. So in case if you want to just watch and listen, you can do that without having to write anything. So otherwise, if you are able to listen and write at the same time, you can still do that. It's fine. But remember, I'm going to record this lesson. It's actually recorded. It's being recorded. And again, I'm going to post it on my website. So remember, I said this is the origin. So obviously, from the origin in that direction, you've got positive x values. You've got positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, and so on. On this side, you've got negative x values. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and so on. So on the vertical axis, you've got positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, positive 4, and so on. So that means from the origin in that direction, we've got positive values. From the origin in that direction, we've got negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So we've got negative values. And those are the negative y values. So remember, this is the first quadrant. When we talk about the first quadrant, we talk about this section of the Cartesian plane. So that is going to be the second quadrant. Obviously, this will be the third quadrant. And this is going to be the fourth quadrant. So ladies and gentlemen, in grade 10, 11, and 12, we use the x and the y axis. When you get to tertiary level, that's where they introduce the third axis called the z axis. But for now, we only look at the x and the y axis. So ladies and gentlemen, before I start with the business of the day, did all of you understand what I've explained so far? Or is there someone who's got a question?
Sir, understood, sir.
Also understood,
Second,
sir.
okay, all right, no. If the two of you confirmed that you understood, then it's fine, we can continue. And remember, guys, most importantly, I'm conducting this lesson in English because I've got a lot of learners who communicate in different languages. So in case if you feel comfortable in asking with your home language, it's fine. Some of my learners, they do that. So you can just ask in whichever language that you're comfortable with. I will translate it in case if it's necessary for everyone to learn from your question. And most importantly, guys, it's advisable that we make as many mistakes as possible because we learn better when we make mistakes. But if we do everything correctly, the moment we come across a mistake, it could be in your classwork, homework, assignment, or most importantly, in your exams. If you make a mistake of which you haven't done before, you are most likely not to notice that mistake. So it's very much important that we do those mistakes in our lessons so that when we come across those mistakes in exams, we will know how to deal with those problems. So guys, please make sure that you don't feel ashamed of making a mistake. Make a mistake so that we learn from those mistakes. Even myself, I wish that I make some mistakes of which you will correct me from those mistakes so that in case if you're in exam and you notice that same mistake, you will be able to correct it and make sure that you obtain maximum marks. So ladies and gentlemen, now what I want to explain is the general formula for a straight line. So it's y is equals to mx plus c. So this is the general formula for a straight line. And I've explained on our previous lesson to say m represents the gradient. So that means m, obviously you know the formula for the gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So C represents the y-intercept. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, that you are aware of this type of information. So I'm just going to leave all of that as it is. Then I'm going to refer from time to time to that board over there. So ladies and gentlemen, here comes a question which says, determine an equation of a straight line of the graph above. So this is the homework that I gave to you, Trias and everyone else, where you are requested to provide an equation. So remember, you need to ask yourself this question: is this a straight line? And answer to that question, it's a big yes. It is a straight line. So now that you've got a straight line, what is the general formula for a straight line? We know it's y is equals to mx plus c. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. This is the general formula for a straight line. So now that we've got a straight line and they want us to determine an equation of that straight line, what do we need in order to answer the question? You need two things, guys. You firstly need your gradient and you secondly need your C value. Remember, your C value is the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? That is a point where your straight line touches or cuts the y-axis. So on the graph, where is that C value? This is that C value. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. So again, I've sent some information in the group where it gives a summary of what you need when you need to find out what is the equation of a straight line. You obviously need 2 points. That's all that you need. Do we have those 2 points? Yes, we do have the 2 points. This is the first point and this is the second point. Why do you need the 2 points? You need the 2 points in order to find the gradient. As soon as you've got your gradient, you are going to use 1 point between these two. You can use any point to calculate the C value. As soon as you find your gradient and the C value, then you are done with the equation of a straight line. You just need to rewrite it in that form, but where you substitute M and C. So I'm going to solve this one until the end. From there, I'm going to take any available questions. So firstly, let's identify our 2 points. So we've got that point, we also have that point. Remember, point number 2 is that one over there. So that means it's 1, it's 2 over there. So that point, that's where obviously your x value is 2 and your y value is 0. Most importantly, guys, this is how you write the coordinates. You firstly start with the x and secondly is the y. So now let's calculate the gradient. So we know that the gradient is equals to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So what is our x1? What is our y2? So remember, guys, these are our points. So we've got the first point where is 2 and 0, and the other one, that's where we've got 1 and minus 1. So we can make this our x2, y2, x1, y1. So all that we need to do is just to substitute these values on our formula. So let's substitute. So what is our y2? Obviously our y2, it's -1. Most importantly, substitute in brackets. So we have -1 minus what is our y, what is it, y1. So obviously our y1 is going to be 0 divided by what is our x2 is that one over there. What is our our x1, it's minus 2 over there. So guys, is there someone who's got a calculator who punched all of that on their calculator? Can the two of you, just the two of you, to let me know what is an answer for that calculation? So let me see. Fraction button, it's -1 minus 0 at the bottom of 1 minus 2. Okay, so guys, what are you getting as your gradient over there?
It's 1.
100%. So I'm also getting 1 as the gradient. So let's see. That means we have y is equals to, the gradient is 1x plus c. So remember, guys, now that we've got our m, which is our gradient, we need to find out what is our c. So we can use any point between this one and that one. So normally, I like using a point which doesn't have negatives because it makes it easy for us to calculate. So if you use that point, it's fine, you will still get the same answer, but it's best when you use a point that has got only positives or a point that doesn't have fractions. So between these 2 points, just use a point which is not that much complicated with fractions or negatives or whatever. So let's say at that point where x is 2 and y is 0. But guys, this is y is equals to, there is just 1, the gradient is 1, so we can just write x and say plus c. Why is it not necessary to write 1 over there? I've explained this is in most of my previous lessons that if it's just 1, there's no need to write 1. But the moment it's a number bigger than 1, then you can write it over there. So there's an invisible 1 over there. So obviously, we use this point to substitute there and solve for c. So y obviously it's 0, it's equals to x is 2 plus c. Therefore, you transpose, it changes the sign, it becomes -2 is equals to c. Can you see? So this is not the answer, guys. You just calculated the value of the gradient and the c value. So now what you need to do is to write an equation of that straight line. So it's easy, guys. You now have everything. So you just say y is equals to, what is m? M is 1. So it's 1x. What is your c? Your c it's minus 2. So this is how you determine an equation of that straight line over there. So guys, before I move on to the next homework that I gave to you, is there someone who's got a question?
No, sir.
Last one to confirm.
No, sir.
Okay, I assume all was clear. So now I'm going to quickly move to the next homework that I gave to you guys. So the next homework was, we had, remember guys, always we have a Cartesian plane, the y and the x-axis. So a straight line or a function or a graph is drawn on a Cartesian plane. So we had a point over there. So this was -1 and this was 2. Same question for this one, guys. We need to determine an equation of the straight line. So I've got a question for anyone who wants to give it a try. Here's the question, guys. Do we have 2 points? And again, what are those points?
May you please repeat the question, sir?
On that straight line, do we have 2 points? And what are those 2 points?
Sir, it could be our gradient and our C value.
Next one to give it a try. So I noted that Trias. Another one to give it a try.
Yes, there are 2 points. It's the first one is -1:2, and the next one is 0:0.
Last one to give it a try. Okay, so I'll explain. So Trias, you can just note this one down. So now that means going forward when you talk about the points. So a point is the coordinates. So let's say it's a point or coordinates, which is the x and the y value. So every time when I say, do we have a point or do we have points, or if I'm referring to a certain point, I'm simply referring to the coordinates, which are in the form of x and y. So that means when I say, do we have 2 points? An answer to that question is a yes. So our first point is that one over there. Our second point is that invisible point over there. I'm not really sure whether to say it's an invisible point or what, but you just need to be careful that our straight line is passing through the origin. And you know, at the origin, that's where we've got the x as 0 and the y as 0. So, Trias, does it make sense now?
Yes, sir.
100%. So an answer to that question is we do have 2 points. So you can also write down this as part of your notes. So when you want to determine an equation of a straight line, you need 2 points. So this is what you need. You need 2 points. And again, you need to use, let me say, use 1 point. So that means you use 2 points to determine the gradient, and you use any point to determine the C value. But if you have the gradient, you can substitute the gradient there and use 1 point to get the C value. So I'm going to remove all of that, and then from there, I'm going to answer that question. So let's see. How many points do we have? We said we've got 2 points. What are those points? So we have -1, we have 2, and again, we have 0 and 0. So let's see. We firstly calculate the gradient. We know it's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So what is y2? We can use this as the y and the x2s as let me say this one as x2, y2, what is it, x1, y1. So obviously it's going to be 0 minus y1 is 2 divided by x2, it's 0. What is x1? It's minus. Remember, always when you substitute, if it's a negative value that you're substituting, make sure that you put it in brackets. So anyone to punch all of that on a calculator and let us know what answer are you getting. So I just need 2 of you guys to confirm. So we have 0. Let's start with the
-2.
-2. Anyone, the second one to confirm?
I think it's +2, sir.
We have -2 and +2. Which one is the answer, guys? The other one to confirm?
It's -2, sir.
So remember, guys, it's 0 minus 2 over 0 minus into -1. So I'm also getting a -2. So just check it there and make sure that you substituted correctly. So now that we've got our gradient as -2, so that means we have y is equals to -2x plus c. Does it make sense so far? Does it make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
Okay, so now that we've got our gradient, so that means we can choose any point to calculate the C value. So remember, I like using the point which doesn't have negatives. So I'm going to use that point and say at where x is 0 and y is 0. So that means I'm going to substitute my x value and my y value. Y is 0 is equals to -2 into x is 0 plus c. So obviously this multiplied by that is 0. So you've got 0 is equals to 0 plus c. So you're just solving for c. Then you move everything to the other side so that on one side you just have c. So when you move everything, it's just 0 minus 0. What is it on a calculator? It's just 0. So now you've got what is it? You've got your gradient, you've got your c value, then you just write the general formula, which is y is equals to -2x plus 0. There's no need to write that plus 0. So you just leave it as it is. So did that make sense to everyone, guys? Is there someone who's got a question before we move to the next part of your homework?
no, sir.
Last one to confirm.
No, sir.
Okay, so let me remove all of this. I just want to quickly explain to you guys and say, remember, when you've got a Cartesian plane, you've got the y, you've got the x-axis. If you have a straight line at that angle, remember, you've got a positive gradient. And again, because your straight line cuts the y-axis below the origin, that means you are going to have a negative c value. Secondly, if you have a straight line, let's say at that angle, drawn on a Cartesian plane with y and x-axis, in this case, you are going to have a positive, it's a negative gradient in this case. Not sure if you remember from our previous lessons, guys. We are going to have a negative gradient. And again, because this straight line cuts the y-axis above the origin, that means we are going to have a positive c value. Do you guys still remember this information?
Yes, sir.
So, as an example, it means for that straight line, if you had to have a formula, it was going to be y is equals to, we are going to have a positive gradient. So, for example, it could be positive 2 or whatever number. Let me just say positive m x. Then in terms of the c value, because it's at the bottom of that origin, then it's going to be a negative c value. And for this one, you are going to have y is equals to, the gradient was going to be negative. It could be negative any number, but let me just say negative m. So that negative value is the gradient. And then the c value is going to be positive c value, because from that point going up, you have positive y values. So guys, make sure that when you're given any type of a graph, before you even perform any calculations, you are able to notice that you've got either a negative or a positive value. So did that make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so I'm going to remove all of these. Then we move to the second part of your homework. What were those 2 points, guys? Is there someone who's got those points? Let me check in the group. So I gave you these 2 points. This was the first points that I gave to you. It was 2 and 11, and the second point was 0 and 0. And then second point, it was negative 7 and 3, and the other one was negative 2 and what is it? Is it 3? So I've posted this in the group. So in case if you want to refer to all of this information, you can find it in the group. And the question to this was plot a straight line using these points. So remember, guys, always when you have to plot a straight line, you need 2 points. But most importantly, you need to be aware that always when you plot a straight line, you plot it on the axis, which is the y and the x axis. So this is the y axis followed by the x axis. So always when you plot a straight line, it could be a straight line or any type of a function, firstly start with your axis or your Cartesian plane. So let's now make those points. So we need to find a point where x is 2, y is 11. So you can just say we've got 1, 2, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is that point over there. So at that point, that's where we've got the x value being 1, 2, and the y value being 11. So the second point is 0 and 0. We know 0 and 0 is at the origin. So what you do now from there is just to use your ruler to connect the 2 points. So you use your ruler to connect the 2 points. So that means you've got a straight line like that. Then in that way, you are done plotting a straight line with these 2 points. Guys, anyone who's got a question, or does it make sense to everyone?
No question, sir.
Okay, so now let's answer number 2. So number 2, remember guys, firstly, you start with your axis. You've got your y-axis, you've got your x-axis, y-axis. Then, what is that point, guys? And what are the coordinates of that point?
0 and 0.
So what do we call that point?
Point of origin.
100%. So this is the origin, and we've got 0 and 0. So another question to you guys. That straight line, does it have a negative or a positive gradient?
A positive gradient, sir.
100%. So there we're going to have a positive m. In terms of the c value, are we going to have a positive or a negative c value?
Negative C value, sir.
A reason to that, Shreyas?
Since the negative n is in the third quadrant.
Okay, so remember, the c value, Shreyas, the c value is where your straight line cuts the y-axis. So that means your straight line cuts the y-axis at the point of origin. So at the point of origin, we are going to have our C value. So do you want to guess what is the C value, Shreyas? Do you want to give it a guess?
Zero, sir.
100%. So the C value is equals to 0. So 0, it's positive 0. And again, even if you say it's a negative 0, it's still the same as just positive 0. So 3, as always, when you comment on the C value, just check where your straight line is touching the y-axis. So in terms of the C value, we don't comment on the quadrants, but where your straight line cuts the y-axis. So let's now plot that second function. So obviously, based on the first coordinates or the first point, we need to find where x is negative 7 and y is positive 3. So let's see, maybe negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. let's say maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's now locate those points. Where x is -7, obviously it's there, and the y value is 3. 1, 2, 3. There we've got 3. So that means it's that point somewhere there. The next point, let's see, where x is -2, and again y is 3. Let's see, where is that point, guys? This is -1, this is -2, and y is what? Y is 3. So it's that point over there. So now that we have located our 2 points, all that we need to do is just to draw a straight line where we connect those 2 points. So you draw your straight line, there you've got your straight line. So ladies and gentlemen, does it make sense to everyone? In this way, you've plotted that second point. Does it make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
So,
Okay, 100%. In that case, that means this is how you had to do the homework that I gave to you guys. So before we end today's lesson, I just want to quickly take you guys through all of this. So I've just noticed it seems like what could be a bit challenging is to find or determine an equation of a straight line. So for today's lesson, we'll be doing it for the last time. On our next lesson, we should be focusing on the next type of a graph, of which as soon as we are done with that one, then we should be able to tackle exam type of questions, because obviously in most cases, especially in your exams, they will give you two types of functions on a Cartesian plane and ask you questions based on those two types of functions. So that's what I want us to make sure that we fully understand before you go to exams. So are you all able to see over there?
yes, sir.
Okay, so I want us to quickly go through 1, 2, 3, and all of that. So let me first take you through the first function that I drew over there, where we need to determine an equation of that function. So this is the first one. I drew it like that, where we've got 4 over there and we've got -2 there. So this graph is called the graph of H. This is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. So just to make sure that we are all on the same page, I'm going to be asking you guys some questions. So in case if you want to give it a try, just make sure that you do so. So normally, I advise you to firstly mention your name, and then from there, you can just give it a try. So with my previous learners, I already know your voices. So in case if you are joining my lesson for the first time, just make sure that when you answer the question, you firstly mention your name and then same time respond to the question. So my first question is, for the graph of H, are we having a negative or a positive gradient?
Tapelo, sir. So I think we're gonna have a positive gradient.
Anyone who disagrees with Tapel on that one? Okay. Okay, so we are going to have a positive gradient. Shreyas, I'm going to pick you on this one. Are we going to have a positive or a negative C value, and why?
So we're gonna have a positive gradient C value because of the line where it cuts the y-axis.
100%, even though I wanted that specific reason why you say we are going to have a positive C value. But don't answer that one. I just want to check if there's someone who would like to give it a try in terms of answering why is it a positive C value.
Ronald, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because the graph cast above the origin.
100%. So the reason why we are going to have a positive C value is because this graph cuts the y-axis above the origin. So if it's below, it's going to be a negative value. So all of you guys, you are correct. We're going to have a positive gradient, and again, we're going to have a positive C value, and the reason to that is because the graph of H cuts the y-axis above the origin. So that means generally we must have y it's equals to, we must have a positive M value and a positive C value. So this is how you determine an equation of the graph of H. So you are going to say, you can say y or you can say h of x. Obviously, we know it's equals to, we said it must be positive mx, and we must also have a positive C value. So the reason why you had to interpret this is because the moment you start having a negative C value, you know you made a mistake somewhere. The moment you have a negative gradient, you know you made a mistake somewhere. So now let's calculate the gradient. So another question, do we have 2 points? And again, what are those 2 points?
Ronald, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have the 2 points. We have the x and y intercepts.
What are those points, or what are those coordinates? Tell me what to write, Ronald.
The coordinates are -2 and 4.
So what am I writing here?
So you're writing at 2 separate points.
Mm-hmm.
The first point is -2.
Second point?
The second point is 0 and 4.
0 and 4. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. So remember, guys, if you're given a point which is just -2, you're given a point there which is just 4. So -2, it's not the coordinates. 4, it's not the coordinates. The moment we talk about the coordinates, we talk about this thing in brackets where you tell us the x value is -2 and the corresponding y value is 0. Same applies for that one over there. So it's very, very much important that you are able to notice the coordinates from the given points. So before I calculate the gradient, are you all satisfied with determining the coordinates, guys, in case if you are given just x value and the y value over there?
Yes, sir.
Last one to confirm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so obviously the gradient is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is equals to, let's see, what is our y2? So let's take this as x2, y2, x1, y1. So our y2 is 4 minus y1 is 0 divided by our x2 is 0 minus what is it? Our x1, remember, it's a negative value, then we substitute in brackets. So what is the gradient there?
-2, sir.
Last one to confirm.
Tapelo, sir, I get +2.
Who got -2?
Shreya, sir.
So Shreyas, I notice you're having a challenge with substitution. Remember, it's 4 minus 0 at the top over 0 minus into -2. Then you get +2. So again, Shreyas, it can never be a negative gradient because we said our gradient for that type of a straight line, it's a positive gradient. So that is the reason why I was asking if we are going to have a negative or a positive gradient. And again, the reason why I was asking if we are going to have a positive or a negative C value. So that's why I was saying the moment you say you are having negative gradient, then you know somewhere, somehow you made a mistake. So Shreyas, make sure to be very careful when you substitute. So when you punch this on a calculator, firstly start with a fraction button, then substitute your first whatever value, then whatever value, minus whatever value. Then from there, you should get the correct answer. So now that we've got our positive gradient, it means we've got y, it's equals to +2x plus c at which point? Which point can we use, guys? So we can use that point because it doesn't have those negative values at 0 and 4. So now let's substitute. This is y, this is x. So that means we have 4, it's equals to 2 into 0 plus c. So obviously 2 times 0, it's equals to 0. So you have 4, which is equals to c. Can you see, guys? Our c value, it's a positive value. So that means our equation is y is equals to 2x plus 4. So this is an answer to the question where they say determine an equation of the graph of h. So now that they said this is the graph of h, you can still write it as h of x is equals to 2x plus 4. So h of x, this is when you specify to say this is the type of a graph that you're dealing with. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone who's got a question in relation to what I've done just now?
No, sir.
Last one to confirm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I assume we are all on the same page. So quickly, I'm going to take you through those two. I think what I'm going to do with those two guys is just to explain. We'll just discuss these two. Then for those who are new or for those who are attending my lesson for the first time, this will be your homework that you do and send in the group. Someone needs to mute their mic. Remember, guys, if I mute your mic, Charlie, BT should, Charlie, can you mute your mic? So I'll mute her mic from my side. Mute. Okay. So remember, guys, in case if you forget to mute your mic or you just unmute it and it causes a disturbance, if I mute your mic, you won't be able to comment for that particular lesson. So make sure to control it yourself. So what I was saying is we'll just quickly discuss 1, 2. I won't do it, but I'll give it to you as your homework, especially for those who are attending my lesson for the first time. So for those of you who attended my previous lessons, you can use it to practice. If you have that time to practice, you can practice and still answer these questions and send via inbox, or otherwise you can still send in the group so that we learn from whatever that you did. So let me just quickly redraw all of that. So the first one is, we've got that, we've got a point there. This is the y axis, this is the x axis. Then we've got there, it's 3. We have a point S there, it's -2 and 4. And they say this is the graph of f. So here comes questions, guys. Are we having a positive or a negative gradient? And again, what can you say about the C value?
Tabelo, sir. I think we're gonna have a negative gradient, and the C value would be positive because the C value is above the origin. It's on
100%, which means generally we are going to have y is equals to, take me through this general equation, Tabel.
Y is equals to -m plus C, because we have a positive C value. Yeah.
Like that.
Yes, sir.
So remember, this is the gradient, but you need to have that x over there, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's -m into x. Yeah.
100%. So we have the x value there. So that means when you use the 2 points that you have, you must have your m as negative whatever value. And again, in terms of your C value, it has to be a positive C value. The moment you get a negative C value, a positive gradient value, then you know you made a mistake somewhere. So let's quickly discuss the second graph that I've got. So we have the y axis over there, we have the x axis over there, we've got 2, we've got -2, we have k, that is the graph of k. So is there someone who wants to interpret all of that by saying or mentioning all the important stuff in relation to that graph? Just mention your name and I will choose.
Tabelo, sir.
Okay, Tapelo, it's fine. You can go for it.
So we're gonna have a positive gradient, and the C value is gonna be negative because it's below the origin. Yeah, it's below the x-axis.
Okay, 100%. So that means generally we are going to have y is equals to you said positive m, isn't it? So it's going to be positive mx, and you said the c value it's negative, so that means we're going to have a negative c value. So guys, I'm not sure if there's any of you guys who's got a question regarding today's lesson, or can we say everyone understood and this is our last lesson based on a straight line? Any question, guys, before I end the lesson?
No, sir.
No question from Shreyas. Anyone else?
No, sir.
No questions. Okay, so I assume everyone understood. So guys, especially the new guys, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get all the information about the latest uploads. So I'm going to upload this lesson on my YouTube channel, so it's accessible on my website. So in case if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can just drop me a WhatsApp text. I'll give you a link where you can subscribe, and then from there I'm going to upload this lesson possibly tomorrow. So in case if you want to remind yourself, you can watch the lesson. If you've got a question, you can still ask me in the group during the lesson. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson as much as I did. So thanks for joining. I will see you on our next lesson. So it will most probably be tomorrow 7:30. Otherwise, I'm going to announce when is our next lesson. So guys, have a good day. And this is the end of our lesson.
Thank you, sir.